Now, I recognize that I am standing between you and coffee and sweets break. So I know that part of my job is to give us enough energy to sustain us for the next 15 or so minutes. But I'm also going to make you work a little bit too, just a little bit. So yes, we're talking about performance management, or what we like to call at Betterworks, performance enablement. And it's philosophically different from a traditional performance program where at the beginning of the year, you get a goal, you meet with your manager. Maybe, if you're lucky, in June, you have a conversation about your own development or personal growth. And at the end of the year, on an employee's favorite day of the year, they get to sit in anticipation, anxiously waiting to hear from a manager where they scored on a scale. Not very uplifting or engaging. And so I've been in HR for over 25 years, spent the last 5 or 6 years in HR tech, and have been a bit of a transformation junkie my entire career. Mostly in talent management, but always being pulled into transformations, whether it was a business transformation, a cultural transformation, or an HR transformation. And one of the things that always drove me crazy is that we could never quite fix what was wrong with performance management. Managers didn't like doing it, felt it was burdensome. Employees certainly didn't enjoy the experience at all. Leaders don't feel like it actually moves the needle, but rather it's a bit of a check in the box. And HR, well, we just get to be the compliance cops that chase people around hoping that they're going to complete the exercise for us. So I was so passionate about it that my CEO, Doug Denderlein, and I wrote a book about performance enablement and how you have to think through sort of some of the shifts from a cultural and change management perspective that need to happen so that you have transformation that sticks. Now, is this a topic that's going to keep your attention for the next few minutes? Are you curious to know what we're doing? Well, let me tell you. And by the way, there's books out front. They don't cost anything. Please feel free to grab a copy before you leave. So there's no question today we're seeing an awful lot of uncertainty, volatility in the market and in the world. And high-performing teams and companies are actually doubling down on a few things that would not be a big surprise. Accountability is an important one. Agility, being able to shift between all of the various things that are coming at us and quickly realign to a new goal or focus for the business. We're getting more focus in conversations with our prospects and customers around efficiency and driving lean thinking. And this idea that we as humans and organizations have to be ready for the change. We don't know necessarily what all the change is going to be, but we need to be better ready for it. But guess what? We're still all humans in an organization, and our employees, well, frankly, all of us, still strive and yearn for meaningful work. We still want the connection to the values and what the organization is trying to achieve. That becomes very important for us to see how we're contributing to that. We also want progress and feedback. So we still need to have a continuous conversation that happens across the course of the year to give us feedback and allow us to adjust, develop, and grow. And speaking of development, we want to be able to see where we can go next. And it's not necessarily now where we can go next in a step up. What's starting to emerge is that there's also a yearning for, I don't need to go up necessarily. I may just want to go sideways, but I want to be able to stretch and grow. So how do you put all of this together? Organizations that are focused on a very volatile marketplace, but still the individuals who have this need for connection, not only to the company, but also to the manager and each other in terms of peers. That's what we talk to in terms of philosophically, that is what supports performance enablement. Now, being in and a great advocate of transformation and change, I acknowledge technology has a very important place in creating the tools that support this kind of continuous conversation. Concepts of having things in the flow of work, which means if you want to give recognition, you can do it if you just live in Teams or Slack. There's a lot of very important pieces to get the technology right, but and I work for a tech company, but the reason I work with this company, Betterworks, is because we have a really balanced view on what's important to get right from a tech perspective and what's important to get right from the human perspective. So how do you approach the transformation that you're about to embark on and make sure that it makes sense, resonates, and becomes something that your employees and managers actually do? So here's where you guys are going to work. And this is a very dangerous thing, I recognize, because in HR, we love talking to each other, and I only have a 20-minute slot. So I'm going to ask you guys to talk at your table for maybe 4 minutes, maybe, but when I wave my hands and say, okay, come back to me, I'd like you to, if you would, don't worry, I'll yell, I'm not shy. So here's the question that I have. Because when you think about a change management approach, if you're talking about performance management, I think there's probably more, but there's 4 key stakeholders in an organization. There's the employees, there's the managers, there's the leaders, and there's HR. And so what I'd like you to think about and talk is what are the behavioral shifts that need to happen for each of these groups in order to transform to something where performance is discussed on a regular basis, feedback is part of the culture, recognition is a natural part, as opposed to the more traditional way of it being a 1 or a 3-point conversation throughout the year. So I've suggested some ideas here, but I'd love to have you chat amongst yourselves. So the question is, have I missed any behavioral shifts that have to happen? For a manager, it's the shift from being an evaluator to one of being a coach. From an employee, it is, HR's got my development covered. I don't need to be my own ambassador here, to one where they are an active participant. For HR, this is a tricky one. Don't get mad at me. At HR, there's some folks in HR who are still very much comfortable with the idea of the way that we used to do things and running the process as it is more of a compliance exercise. The way I always hear it is if an HR person says, our performance management is perfect because we get 100% completion on the exercise. Red flag to me, because it's not just about that. And then leaders, it's from delegating to HR. This is a compliance exercise that HR is making us do, to one where they're actually standing up beyond the go-live announcement of the new way of being, but 6 months later, having a dashboard that says, we're not having enough conversations, our goals are lapsing, you get the idea. So, 3 to 4 minutes. My question to you is, which is the hardest shift in terms of a stakeholder? Which stakeholder group is the biggest challenge? And there's no right answer, by the way, but please talk amongst yourselves for a few minutes. Going to give you one more minute. Okay, start wrapping up your conversation. And for anybody who's brave enough, I'd encourage you to give us some feedback. You'll have to yell, but see, this is HR. We just keep talking. Okay. Anybody have any big aha moments or what was surprising? What were some? Just shout them out. Like who said managers? Oh, a lot of hands for managers. Who said employees? Who said HR? Oh, not many because we're so good. and leaders. Yeah, I'm going to put my hand up on leaders too. For somebody who said managers, there's a big group over here that said managers. Can somebody just stand up and yell out what was it about managers in particular? Lack of skill? They kind of get from all angles. There's leadership, employees, they're in the middle. Yeah, and they always have something else that's related to direct business that they need to be doing. Okay, so let's get into it. Although for the people who said HR, we're gonna have a second conversation about that. I promise you. Okay, so for managers, I worked at a very large aerospace company, and one of the things that we did well, I don't know if this is going to resonate for you, but we had a lot of managers who were technically excellent. So we gave them a promotion and suddenly they were reporting into 20, 30 people, or had 20 or 30 people reporting into them. So they haven't been trained to support development conversations, let alone constructive conversations, any kind of feedback, etc. And then what we would do is we would send them to a class for an hour once a year and say, this is how you do it. And then we would magically expect that suddenly they would become incredibly transformed into these amazing, magnificent coaches. And so, don't worry, I've got why it's challenging, but I also have a few ideas, both from a technical perspective and a change perspective of things that you can do. They often feel the pressure to solve problems immediately. I used to say that the only thing we needed at our plants was a phone booth because we had so many people that were striving to be Superman and solve the problem that we needed the space for them to change into their costumes. And that there's this other piece to it that, you know, emotional intelligence, patience, and empathy, these are skills of highly gifted people managers and coaches. It can be learned, but I don't know that we are as comfortable or at least as successful in HR over the past little while in teaching those skills on a scalable way. Just my opinion, you can come after me. So how do you make it happen? I don't think sending people into a classroom or a course once a year is the way to go. I think you need to meet in the moment where they need the coaching, that you need to meet them with the tools, whether it's an AI co-pilot, whether it's a guide. In the moment they're about to go and have a constructive conversation, in the moment where they're about to create a goal for somebody in their team, in the moment that they're going to have recognition, let's support them in those moments of matter to make those moments matter actually count, as opposed to it being some distant memory course that they took a year ago that they've quickly forgotten. I think modeling it visibly is also important, and measuring and holding accountable the behaviors that you're asking your managers to do. Now, I'm not saying when you roll out this kind of approach that in year one you say, Okay, I'm going to wave a wand and everybody's going to do this brilliantly. That's totally unfair to your managers. But if you can say, in year 1, this is sort of where you're going to go, but by year 3, we are expecting, and we'll support you, don't worry, but we're expecting that you are going to be doing this much more proficiently, then we're going to hold you accountable in year 3. That's the part of change management that nobody gets, which is this notion of accountability. So at a certain point, people do need to opt into the change. Employees, since there are not that many people with employees, I think the thing with employees, because I am conscious of time and I want to get to HR. With employees, I think the idea here is that we need to make them step much more into being their own talent developer and a lot more curious. I just recently did an interview about job hugging, where people are very risk averse now to making any kind of sudden movements in their development. I think this is part of that. We need in HR to do better at creating an environment where people have psychological safety and feel comfortable to move in the space of curiosity. But we don't have enough time to talk about that. See, it's because you guys took too long chatting amongst yourselves. Let's talk about HR for a second, because I think this is the one that we don't talk about enough. And I've had enough conversations with HR teams that there is risk aversion on 2 fronts. I think one of them is that there is, I think, still a group of HR that says, you know what, it ain't broke. It's moving smoothly. From a compliance perspective, it's really great. And okay, that's fine. But we are not going to be as relevant to the business if we don't move from that space as of process owner to one that says, the business is moving in this direction. Let me articulate to you why we need to do things differently from a performance perspective and how that relates to your goals, leaders, of innovation, growth, M&A, et cetera. If we don't start being able to articulate a direct causal effect of what we do in performance to business outcomes, we're going to never have the proverbial seat at the table, right? That is now, I think, table stakes for HR people. And if you want budget for a new program or any kind of resources, you need to start thinking and talking in terms of business outcomes, as opposed to we need to fix our broken HR program because nobody likes it. It's not good enough. How many people said leaders? Yeah, because this is I have 1 minute and 41 seconds here, just to be specific. The challenge, I think, with leaders is, and this is part of our job as change management gurus, experts, et cetera, is to actually make sure that they understand what they're signing up for when they say they are a sponsor or a champion of change. What it doesn't mean is that they stand up and read talking points at the beginning of the year and say, this is the new way we're going to do it, it's important for the business, over to you, HR, and then never have another conversation about it. Instead, they need to be living and breathing it. They actually need to show the vulnerability themselves, that they need feedback, that they need coaching, that it's important for them and their own development and for the business. They need to have dashboards from a technology perspective. They need to have the visibility to say, well, wait a minute, we said and committed that this is the way we were going to work as a company from now on. This is how we were going to do performance. And there's a whole bunch of you that are still not setting up your goals at the beginning of the year. Let's take a minute and dive down into that, shall we? So that over time it becomes an expectation that people understand that if they're going into a leadership meeting, they're going to be held accountable for what their performance is. It becomes the way we do what we do and how we work. The other piece to it, which feels a little bit softer in my perspective, is to make it a CEO level topic, which sounds a little bit like give them some talking points. That's not what the intention is. But again, the idea is this isn't something, performance management is not something that's HR's problem. It's not something that is HR to police, and it's not HR's job to chase around and try and get this sort of hated process complete. When you think about it, performance is actually about activating all the managers and employees in your organization, aligning them to what you are trying to accomplish as a goal, supporting your employees so that they have the development and the career progression that they want, and overall focused on delivering the objectives and the priorities for the company. So if you think about it from that perspective, we need to make sure that we're setting the tone and expectation with our leadership team that they need to step into this as a way of working as opposed to an HR issue to manage. 0. Thank you.